Stigmatization around mental health still exists. When it comes to parenting, they always say there is no single playbook. When your child is growing up and they start to struggle, you can often feel like you're completely alone. Talking about your child's mental health or substance use is not typically the first topic brought up when you're around your friends. Since January of 2023, I've been extending the opportunity for parents who feel comfortable talking about their journey to do so on this podcast. No topic is off limits, and not all stories are positive. This series is meant to be honest, transparent, and real for each individual parent's experience with their child. Please note that this special parent series is the parent perspective of their child's crisis. This is merely one perspective of a single story, and it's important to know that names have been changed for the protection of the parents and the children. These episodes may include details surrounding suicide, self-harm, substance abuse, including overdose, hospitalizations, psychotic episodes, and other traumatic experiences, which include parts of the treatment journey. That includes working with consultants, hiring a transport, wilderness therapy, and residential treatment experiences. All that is to say, listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Parent Series, brought to you by Success is Subjective.
It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilly.
Jennifer is a mom of 2 young adult children who have struggled in different ways. Her son struggled with anxiety, depression, ODD, and ADHD early on, and by 15 was using alcohol and substances to cope. Her daughter was diagnosed with absence seizures at 3, recovered, but was left with educational difficulties. When their son was 16, Jennifer and her husband made the agonizing decision to send their son to an RTC for the first time. He would eventually come home, relapse, go back to his RTC, and then on to sober living. She feels the combination of residential treatment and sober living were the catalyst that allowed him to heal and how to live a life of sobriety. Meanwhile, back at home, while their attention was focused on supporting their son during treatment, her daughter showed signs of social anxiety and depression. Jennifer credits what she learned from navigating her son's journey with preparing her to actively help and support her daughter. Jennifer credits both of her children and their struggles as her motivation to strive for increased personal growth. She claims her son's journey has brought the biggest gifts, including the start of her own path to emotional recovery, an amazing support network, but her most fulfilling roles have been rooted in advocacy and support. Currently, she volunteers as Guardian Ad Litem, using her personal experiences to advocate for children in difficult circumstances, as well as manages media pages and facilitates weekly support group meetings for the parents of her son's 2 treatment centers. Her biggest passion is her work she does as an OPLM, which is Other Parents Like Me, peer parent, where she finds purpose and connection in guiding others through similar struggles, providing them with hope and support on their own journeys to healing. Here's Jennifer. All right, Jennifer, thanks again for being a guest on the parent series of the Success is Subjective podcast. I'm really excited to actually hear your story and just to meet you because we've never connected before. So if you're okay, just giving the audience a little bit of backstory of what was going on with your child prior to entering treatment.
Oh, absolutely. So it's important to say that my son's struggles started way before alcohol and substance use came into the picture. The signs were really already there from the start. Parenting him was extremely challenging. He would have long 1-hour tantrums, night terrors. He's very strong-willed and demanding, yet also very intelligent and articulate. So my dad once babysat for me and warned me that I was in trouble because he lost an argument with a 4-year-old. So in school, once school started, he struggled to get along with other kids, became physical out of frustration. At home, he'd be argumentative and defiant. And over time, his behaviors escalated, like frequent altercations, teacher notes, detentions, and despite various discipline methods, nothing was like long-term effective. So we had a lot of rules, and I think we even had a list on the fridge, but none of them mattered because he would just kind of blow right through them. We had a child psychologist friend who suggested he might be oppositional defiant. So at that point, I think it was around fifth grade, we went and got him tested. He tested for ADHD, oppositional defiant. They said he struggled with anxiety and depression, which kind of go along with the ADHD. So 4 years of therapy. Didn't do nothing, saw his therapist as an extension of us. And he resisted medication, but unbeknownst to us, he had already been self-medicating in middle school. So academically, he excelled. He was in honors classes. He was musically talented. He's been playing drums since he was 5. He taught himself guitar. He was in rock bands. He even played on the House of Blues quite a few times. Taught himself how to play different instruments, was on the football team. We really thought he was like finally maturing, like things were coming together, but it was all a facade. And I remember a neighbor calling me over and was like, I think your son's hiding stuff in the bushes. And we'd find like empty beer cans. And one of them was turned into like a do-it-yourself bong. And I was like, I don't even know what this is. Like, I have no idea. And he's like, well, he's been doing this for a while. So we confronted him. We thought, my husband's like, he's just experimenting. I did it at his age. No big deal. Put a lock on the garage fridge just to be on the safe side. And well, it wasn't a phase. I guess he had been posting stuff on social media, and that's how we found out a lot of the stuff, because kids that age just aren't that smart. So we confiscated his phone, found even more stuff, and set even more rules. You know, we didn't know about boundaries back then. We noticed in high school his grades were declining. His friends group changed. He became more distant. He was occasionally, I think the experimenting slowly got out of control. The alcohol was going missing. We put a lock on that cabinet. I constantly was smelling marijuana, finding weed or paraphernalia in the house. And he would try to make me think I was crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't smell anything. Ask my sister. There's nothing here. It's all in your head. And so for many years, his therapist his therapist recommended residential treatment. But my husband and I could not agree. We just could not get on the same page. And my son was convinced us that he can manage on my own. Oh, if it's that big of a deal, if it's causing that much trouble, I'll just stop. Oh, that would be great. I would love that. So, but he couldn't. And his behavior worsened, the lying, the stealing, the sneaking out, disappearing for days. At the time, my husband was working out of town 3 days out of the week. So my son pretty much thought he could get away with anything. And it was hard to really discipline him because he could become so verbally aggressive. He's never put his hands on me, but he was so verbally aggressive. It was to the point where you just want to walk away. You want it to be over. I would give in. And my husband wasn't there to back me up. I mean, he's, 2 hours away, and what was he going to do on the phone? Eventually, we reached that breaking point. And I called the treatment center that I had found months prior. And the resources and support available now are way much better than they were 5 years ago. Even his therapist had no recommendations for me. You're recommending treatment, which is great. But okay, so what do I do now? Well, I don't know. She's never gotten that far. So I researched and found a dual diagnosis residential treatment that was covered under insurance out of network. And luckily, it proved to be exactly what our family needed. I could not have picked a better place. We somehow convinced him to go willingly. I was sure that when we woke up that morning, he would be gone, but he wasn't. We drove 10 hours there, and I was trying to be cool and not agitate him the whole time. And the treatment center was texting me and being like, don't let him out of the car by himself. Don't let him go into a gas station. And I'm like, what is going to happen? Like, I was just full of anxiety. And it was really weird because there was this mix of quiet moments, conversations, and even some laughter. So if you were in that car, you would never know that we were on our way to treatment. And once we arrived, his tension was absolutely palpable. We pulled up, it was a house. It didn't look like a treatment center. So he was kind of thrown off, and he's like, oh, it kind of feels like a boarding school. And so we did literally a 30-minute intake. They left us in the room with him for like 5-10 minutes to say goodbye. And I could see that he was just fuming inside. So I just gave him a hug. He walked us out. And we drove 10 hours home with my husband hysterical crying. And I said, are you sure you don't want to stay over? Are you sure? And he's like, no, I just need to get home. I just need to keep moving. And literally, we got up the next morning for my daughter's volleyball game. This isn't something that's covered in books. There's no parent book. There's nothing to prepare you to sending your child to treatment. He was there for 90 days. We were kind of torn between missing him and feeling like we could finally breathe. We were learning a lot about our son, about ourselves, as how we showed up as parents. And about 3/4 of the way through, we finally started seeing progress. He came home. They thought he was ready to come home. We did too. He did online school. He attended meetings and therapies twice a week, and he was very compliant. That should have been my red flag. About 2 months later, he had, I lapsed here. I had a lapse here. I told his alumni coordinator, they would call us and we would talk about it. But slowly it just progressed into a full-blown relapse. And things just got worse and worse, even before before treatment. I no longer saw my son. I could not separate him from his behavior or the drug use. And I really felt myself kind of disconnecting from him completely. And I still remember the hurt in his eyes when I wouldn't hug him. And the chaos lasted for several months. And I'm not sure what I was waiting for. Because even the alumni coordinator was like, Jennifer, what are you waiting for? And I'm like, I want a sign. I need something to convince me it's really this bad. And I felt like I failed. I felt like it was so much harder the second time around. And if I'm being honest, that first time we went, it was more like, here's my kid, fix him and bring him back to me. Like, I didn't do any of the things like they say, go to meetings or read this book. And we did a little bit here and there, but nothing like we probably should have. And eventually I got the sign that I needed. I called his treatment center that day and I said, how quickly can you take him? And he's like, well, have a conversation and see if you can get him to go. And that went sideways. And we literally had him transported the day before his 17th birthday. And I remember him saying he thought he was going to be out partying with his friends. And here he is sitting in treatment. And they were great. They bought him a birthday cake and they hugged him and it was awesome. But again, he was still very angry. There was a lot of anger towards us. And I remember telling his therapist, he can't come home. Like, they were going to keep him 60 days. And I was like, I don't know what to do because he cannot come back in this home. I had a daughter that was like 3 years younger than him. She had been through a lot. I just can't do it anymore. And so at that point, they helped us transition him into a sober living that was close by. And even he was like, I don't want to come home. He considered our home as toxic and chaotic. And I was like, I don't think he realized that he was the one that was contributing to that. So he was there for a little over 4 months and then COVID hit. He did really well. He worked the program. He really bought into it. He was willing, but then he lost his job and he was like, I want to come home. And we're like, I'm not really sure if you're ready. He had completed his 12 steps. And so we had a few family sessions. They thought he was ready. At that point, we felt really good about it. And he came home and it wasn't easy. We put our new tools and skills were tested quite often. He would push against boundaries, but we learned not to take it personal. And we allowed him the autonomy to test those boundaries and learn to trust our support and figure out what sobriety and independence was going to look like for him. And for a kid that constantly felt like he was controlled, I think that was one of the things that made the biggest difference. He was home for about a year and he had done everything. He got a license. This kid had his permit 3 times. He had to go get his permit because he kept going back to treatment. So he was all excited. He finally got his driver's license. He bought himself a car and he was just kind of thriving in his, and then I guess things weren't going great with his girlfriend and he was feeling a little bit stifled and not sure where he was going. He had gotten his GED while he was in treatment. And that was really hard for me to let go of because my kid was in IB and then he dropped down to AP and then he was in honors and then he was in general. And I didn't get to, I had to grieve that loss of not getting to see my son walk across the stage. And there was a lot of losses, but I thought to myself, in 10 years, it's not going to matter as long as he's independent and being able to take care of himself. And so he got his GED and he said, I want to go back to my sober living community. He spoke to the owner and they said they had a job for him. And he's like, how quickly can I move? How much money do I need to have? And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, what are you going to do? You're only, like, he was just like, I don't even think he was 19 yet. And I said, okay. And we figured it out and they found him, I guess I don't know what they call it, but it's kind of like a 3/4 living. So he was living with men he was the youngest by far. He probably had more sobriety than most of them, but it was cheap. So he literally just had a bed to sleep in, and he started work like literally the next day. And he started out as an RA. He's been there for 3 years, and he works as admissions now. He's worked his way up. He is an alumni coordinator for his treatment center. And then he started speaking at different schools through this program and telling his story. He got married last year, and he's finally getting his own apartment. Like he was in the 3-quarter house until his girlfriend moved up there. And then he was living with another couple and a baby. So that was an experience for him, and now he's getting his own apartment. And so he's really just kind of thriving on his own. And I honestly never, of all the ways I envisioned throughout these last 5 years of what his life was look like, not one of them looked like this. And that really showed where I was in my life, because there was a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of overthinking. Like I just constantly never thought that he would pull through this and that he would have the life that he has now. And it was a rough start. He had a really rough start, and he navigated some really hard struggles, but he has shown so much courage and determination and resilience. And I even tell him, like, damn, you're killing it. You are way better now at your age than me and your dad were. So that's kind of our story. I left a lot out, but we're kind of in a time restraint. But I learned a lot about understanding him through his treatment center. And I learned a lot about myself and really having to kind of do my own work and heal myself so that I could truly support my child.
Can you elaborate on that? I'm just kind of curious. When you talk, there are so many things that you shared in the story too, that I was like, oh, that's really good advice for other parents. Oh, that's like phenomenal advice. Oh, but I didn't want to stop you. You were in the zone sharing the story. So I just like totally let you take it. And it was so packed emotionally, right? I'm sure the listeners could hear even in your tone some of those, like, when your voice catches in your throat because you're just so emotional in the moment of like, as a parent, how did it get to this place? I'm looking for a sign. I don't want to have my son go back to treatment. Like you said, I'm grieving the loss of all of these things that I was like looking forward to as a parent, watching my kid walk across the stage, like all these things. You also talked about boundaries. Hey, I did not know about boundaries until some point. So I say all of this, I'm like kind of trying to capture some of the things that you peppered in your story that were really helpful for other parents to hear. But you just said, I really needed to work on myself. I needed to help myself. What did you do to help yourself?
So there was a pivotal moment when, before my son was getting ready to go, back to treatment, and we were talking to his therapist, who also worked for kind of like a recovery center. And I kept going to him and being like, I don't understand. Like, why does this feel harder? And I must have went like 2 or 3 times. And finally he said, Jennifer, I'd be happy to sit here for an hour and talk about your son, but do you want to work on you? And I was like, what do you mean me? What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And I wasn't sure what that looked like, but I had this fear of like, what do you mean, like, work on me? And we did some inner child work and some part work, and I really kind of took to it. And so in an effort to support and help my son, I realized it was crucial to look within, confront my own trauma, heal from years of buried emotions. And I saw that need to change on how I handle things and get rid of those defenses that no longer serve me, to learn ways to connect with him more deeply and understanding for what he was going through. And I learned to embrace honesty, vulnerability. I learned how to create a safe and non-judgmental place for my son and my family, and be able to express themselves. And it was crucial in building that new connection that we were really working on. Therapy has been worth every penny. It has allowed me to become emotionally mature and establish strong connections with not only my son, but with my daughter as well. And I can sit in their pain and their truth, and I can validate their feelings, even when they're directed at me, which was always really hard, especially when it was hurtful. And I can maintain that inner calmness, and that I always struggled with prior. And through this process, I acquired these skills of like being able to listen without judgment and without giving advice or this compulsion to fix everything, so that I could feel okay, because that's where a lot of this was coming from, is that I didn't feel okay in my own life. And so this need for safety came out of control even controlling my own children. And I learned to pause when my capacity was low. And even when I wasn't able to show up with the kindness and the compassion that I wanted, or if I fell short, I could apologize. I can ask for a do-over and understand that it's not about perfection. The goal is for growth and for connection, and learning about boundaries. Boundaries has been huge. It's become my safeguard for my peace, and it teaches others how I want to be treated. And I realized this was the hard thing, is when we learned about boundaries, is that it's not meant to control anyone else. It's just for you. And learning to have self-compassion, that was crucial, because for me, as you have awareness, you then have to battle guilt and shame, because you're learning so much about yourself. But that led me straight to accepting of myself, and then I can accept others for who they are. And I couldn't do that with my son. And I think he really saw that, and he felt that. And even with my daughter, who always, like, she would say, like, oh, why do you have to criticize my outfit? Why do you have to criticize this? Why do you always have to do that? And I'm like, finally hearing her and being like, you're right. And the one thing I tell my son, I go, I'm so sorry that I'm a better parent to your sister than I was to you. I learned so much in his journey that allowed me to be the parent I really wanted to be to her. So my daughter may come off as being sarcastic or, what's the word, that parent, inappropriate or disrespectful, but she's not. She's telling me how she feels. And I'm allowing her the space to do that and be okay with that and say, you're right. Like, I was being critical, or I was being this, and I get it, and I'm sorry. Where other parents are just not understanding because they haven't been through what we've been through. And I hear that a lot of other parents say the same thing, is like, my family and friends don't understand. Like, how they're parenting their child is very different than how, others parent their own. And that's because of the skills and the tools that we learn. We let our kids be who they are without trying to change them of the mold that we think they should fit in. And to others, that looks like it's bad parenting sometimes, and it's not. So I'm so grateful. I hate that my son had to go through what he went through, but I am so grateful for the gifts that it has given me, because I have an amazing community now. I mean, one that I wouldn't trade for anything. The support that I have, which I did not have when my son started treatment. They didn't have support groups. It wasn't till right around COVID hit, and everybody kind of went online. And me and some of the parents at a parent intensive met each other and were like, hey, let's just start a Facebook group, just so that, because text threads can be annoying. And that group has blossomed into 3 other groups with over 300 members of just parents of one facility. And we support each other. And we have online meetings that we do twice a week. And so that's kind of where I got started. And then I said, you know what, I really want to take the skills that I have and help other children. And so I became a Guardian Ad Litem. And I absolutely I can see the parents struggling, and I can come to them without judgment, regardless of the fact that they can't take care of their kids, because of what I went through. And then that led me to OPLM, between doing the online meetings and I was like, I just love this community. I love the idea of this community. And even my son will say, like, he's very deep in his sobriety. He sponsors, and he goes to all these different meetings. And there's just something about these people that are in this community, like that feeling of being seen and heard, and not dismissed. And there's no judgment. It's an amazing thing to have. And unless you go through something like this, most people will never understand what that looks like or feels like. And it kind of makes me sad, because I have friends that are struggling, or their friends' kids that are struggling, and I want to give this to them. But I also know that I probably would have been the same way and been like, no, I don't need that. I'm good. I'm fine. Because I'm that I'm fine girl. I'm fine. I'm holding it all together. Like I told you, I literally drove 10 hours, dropped him off, drove 10 hours home, and woke up at 6 a.m. to go to a volleyball tournament. And my girlfriend, the only one that knew that was going on, sat next to me and said, I don't understand how you're here right now. And inside, I'm literally crying and crumbling. But on the outside, I am cheering, and I am there for my daughter, because that's what she needed, And the other thing is, like, after a few years, my daughter finally got up the courage. And I think she felt safe with me to let out all this resentment to me of what she went through, not just with her son, but how with us, like she had to be the good one. She had to downplay all of the things that she felt because she knew we couldn't do one more thing. And so then she started dealing with social anxiety and then depression. And luckily, everything that I had been learning with my son, I was able to support her, and get her the help that she needed and see her blossom. So there's been a lot of gifts that come out of all of this. It's hard to tell somebody who's kind of in the muck of it that there's going to be something grateful to come from this. Gratitude is something we talk a lot about in our meetings, but we also understand that in this space, you may not be able to feel that, and that's okay. But all these lessons, all these things that we're learning, allowing you to have this amazing connection with your child is not something that I ever thought I would have. Like, I thought my relationship was good, and it was far from that, so far from that. And my son is at a place where he can say, I was saying, I have to write a bio for this thing that I'm doing, and I'm really struggling, and I feel like maybe I'm just going to not do anything. And he said, that's really on character for you, Mom. And I was like, wait, what? And he said, because when you're mom, you are all in it. He goes, but when it comes to you, you run for the hills. And I was like, oh my God, he's right. He's right. And I was like, and I said, well, can you write it for me? And he goes, no. And I was like, and so he called later that night, and I go, guess what? I wrote the bio. And he goes, I knew you would. I love the relationship we have now. It's so much better than what I would have dreamed of.
Jennifer, thank you for being a guest on the podcast. Thank you for vulnerably sharing your story, right? Taking the mom hat off and on, right? Just talking about you. I didn't feel like I had to ask a single question during this interview because it was pouring out of you in a beautiful way, right? Like, you felt comfortable sharing the entire journey and all of the things that, honestly, a parent that is in the thick of it right now is listening to this, and they're probably going to appreciate a lot of those things that you shared about your own journey. So thank you again for taking the time to be a guest on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email Joanna at lilyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.
Do you have a teenager or young adult who seems to have lost their way? Maybe they need help navigating adolescence, adulthood, and decisions surrounding higher education. Or maybe they have become withdrawn, their grades are slipping, or they are flat out living a reckless lifestyle, and you're concerned about their health and well-being. If this describes what your teen or young adult is facing, a therapeutic consultant may be able to help. Mental health, addiction recovery, and higher education can all be equally expensive. While information is everywhere, how do you know what option is the best one for your family? Some parents have the time to research and navigate this on their own. Some don't. If the latter applies to you, enter therapeutic consultants. Therapeutic consultants, like Joanna, listen to your family's specific needs and advocate on behalf of your loved one. TCs will research therapeutic resources, recommend treatment programs, and assist during adulthood transitions. Not being affiliated with any program, their support is completely objective and catered toward the best interest of each unique family. To find a qualified therapeutic consultant to work with, check out TCA, also known as the Therapeutic Consulting Association. Their website is therapeuticconsulting.org, all one word. Again, that's therapeuticconsulting.org. Then click the Find a Pro tab up at the top.